Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today I've got something special for you. We're going to be looking at, in my opinion, the most overpowered tank at its most overpowered point. It is the Waffentrager Alpha 100, and today our hero showing it off will be Tazhit from the Russian server. So the WT Alpha 100 was introduced into the game in update 8.9, hitting the European server in November 2013. And it pretty much had the choice of either being an auto-loading Jagdtiger or an auto-loading E100, as it had a 128mm caliber gun and a 150mm caliber gun. But at least in this case, initially bigger was not always better, and the auto-loading Jagdtiger gun had a higher magazine potential because it loaded 6 rounds with 560 damage, leading to 3,360 magazine potential that this tank delivered within 10 seconds of the first shot. So that basically meant that, yeah, if you're a T-30 and you got caught out, I mean, that T-30 is lucky to be alive at the start of this game, and it misses 1 off the T-110E4 cheeks, now puts 2 into the top, and that's 2 tier 10, well, 1 tier 9 and 1 tier 10 tank pretty much obliterated, and 2,229 damage dealt. Now, of course, Tazhit took a little bit of, well, no damage there. He only took module damage, actually, because they hit his tracks, and because this does have the hull of an E100, albeit without all the spaced armor over the side, which meant this thing actually ricocheted quite well off its hull armor. The weakness of the tank was the fact that its turret was absolutely garbage. This was the... This turret probably even makes the FE4005s look a little bit sleek because of just how wide it was at the back and how it would stick over as you were turning the turret towards the side. But unlike the FE4005, I guess Wargaming maybe learnt a little bit of something from this tank. It had a fully traversable turret, and so it could drive away from you at pretty much about 40 kilometers an hour while also unloading on you with unprecedented firepower. So, if you didn't want to use the 128mm Jagdtiger gun on this tank, you could also use the E100 gun, which then you'd be carrying 4 150mm caliber shells, and you'd be able to do 3,000 damage, although the shell delay was a little bit longer, and so it did make things a little bit awkward for the WT Alpha 100, and you actually ended up doing less damage overall with the magazine, and that's just sick. Goodbye Tiger 2, goodbye T-32. In a single magazine, 2 tier 8 tanks taken out. Oh my lord. You know what, I'm pretty happy that these things aren't in the game any longer. I've heard rumors that they're actually in some kind of a premium version of this is on the Chinese server, but I'll have to take a look into that in a bit more detail. If anyone out there is playing on the Chinese server and you do have one of these yourself, then please send me the replay. I'll download the Chinese client just to be able to feature it, because I'd love to see what these kind of things can do these days as a premium tank. Now, of course, the WT Alpha 100, any tank that packs up a huge magazine potential has a long reload, and none more so than this. This thing pretty much took a whole minute to reload before it was able to then do 3,360 damage in the magazine. But the thing about World of Tanks is that if you can reload safely, like Tazhit is doing here, then you can just get ready to do this kind of thing. Where the IS-7, sure, the IS-7 does a little bit of damage to Tazhit, but he finishes him off. That's a tier 10 tank dealt with, and also then the AMX 1390 on the enemy team obliterated as well. Absolutely outrageous stuff for this tank, as per usual. And it doesn't look like Tazhit's friend is having quite as much luck as he is, though, as he's pushing forwards. And will he be able to finish off the ST1 before the ST1 finishes him off? No, he actually bounces, and the ST1 manages to finish off Tazhit's platoon mate. But the T-30 puts a big old hit in there, but luckily Tazhit's able to finish him off and pick up a top gun. And within the first 4 minutes of this game, deal nearly 7,000 damage. Yeah, that's right, ladies and gents. 8.9 WT Alpha 100 was the bomb. Well, I guess yeah, for the first few games you played in it. Because after a while you just felt like this tank was genuinely bad for the game. Sure, I guess it was hilarious when you got to clip the entirety of a tier 10 tank, but the whole idea of a vehicle that sacrifices all of its armor to be able to gain an unprecedented amount of firepower and having an unbalanced firepower, like an FE4005 is bad enough firing Hesh. If it doesn't manage to penetrate you, it does about 700 damage to your heavy tanks. And if it does penetrate you, well, at least you go back to the garage. This thing was not even able to be able to take out the entirety of one tank quite often, but it would be able to finish off the other as well. Now, this vehicle didn't really last long in this situation. Wargaming at first took a very delicate approach with it, and that's because in update 8.11, which happened in February 2014, leaving this tank in this state for 3 months, Wargaming decided to remove 200 hit points off the turret, because why should one of the most dangerous tanks in the game have 2,200 hit points, right? They nerfed the turret traverse speed, the track traverse speed, and they massively increased the dispersion of the tank, and that was what was just so incredibly broken about the vehicle for those first 3 months. And that is that the tank could pretty much have no aim time. And so, not only did it have the best gun in World of Tanks, it had amazing gun handling as well. Oh, and I also think it had something stupid like 420 meters view range, but I can't really confirm that. I think that Tazhit's probably using coated optics along with, probably not vents because this is an open tank. He's probably using a gun laying drive. I'm not sure if you could even use vents on this thing as it was open top. So he's probably using a gun lane drive coated optics, and he's definitely using a camo net right now. T125 doesn't quite manage to spot Tazhit there, and the artillery finishes him off, and this is an IS-8, aka a T10 these days. Oh, this is some old school gameplay right here. Back when that thing was called the IS-8 at tier 9, then they changed the name to the T10. Man, I kind of miss this. I'm looking at all of the different tanks on the enemy team and then looking at the different tiers that they played at. Well, actually, all the tiers are the same, but looking at vehicles like the SU-122-54, which has since been removed from the game, and looking at artillery not managing to actually do a huge amount of damage when it splashes, and seeing tier 7 light tanks having to deal with tier 10 tanks. I personally quite liked that when I was in a tier 7 light tank having to deal with tier 10 tanks, because the vehicles were just as powerful as they are at tier 8 now, but you got all of that extra juicy experience. Anyway, let's focus on the WTRV 100. Tazhit is setting up an ambush here, I guess expecting the 2 IS-3s on the enemy team to trundle towards his cap circle while his team applies pressure to theirs. So I mentioned in update 8.11 that the WTRV 100 was nerfed, but they didn't really change anything about the firepower of the tank. They just tried to change how convenient or comfortable it was to fire and how quickly the vehicle could traverse around. However, this was not enough, but it took Wargaming a subsequent 6 months to realize that this tank was completely broken, and in August 2014 in update 9.2 this time, and so from update 8.11 up to 9.2 this vehicle continued to still be incredibly powerful, albeit not quite as good as you're seeing here. Wargaming made the move of seriously nerfing this vehicle. They further nerfed the dispersion, and they took a round off the 128mm, and so the vehicle went down from, I guess, 3,360 damage to being just under 3,000. Still very dangerous, but considering they didn't really improve the reload of the vehicle and just taking a round out of its magazine, it definitely was one of the ends of the WTRV 100 being completely, absolutely, outrageously ruffle-stomp broken. But I guess they still decided it ended up not being very good for the game, as pretty much a year or two later, they just flat out removed it. Now, I wonder if Wargaming will bring this back. I always get a little bit worried, you know, when they're talking about this Bond Shop shenanigans. Do you think that they would bring this back in the game right now? Definitely, obviously not in this state. They have to seriously still nerf it, and I think the only way to truly balance out a vehicle like this with a fully traversable turret is to just give it some kind of, I don't know. Actually, I don't know. I think they'd probably have to further nerf the 128mm, maybe reduce it to having 4 rounds of ammunition. So it's a bit like a Foch B that has the same kind of magazine potential, albeit it might do the damage a little bit quicker, but it's going to have that god-awful turret that makes it quite weak. Oh, great reactions there. Tazhit contesting a 1 versus 6 scenario here, having dealt with the IS-3 and now dealt with the T-54 with some clutch reactions. Did you notice how far the vehicle came round the corner there? And he bounces the T-125 off his upper hull and finishes him off. Now with 1 round left, I guess expecting the SU-122-54 to push him. Is Tazhit going to go reload now? This is always the awkward thing to decide what to do in the WTRV 100. Should you reload or should you keep that round? Is it going to be enough to be able to deal with the hit points of the enemy tanks? I haven't quite seen them over on the distance, but he's still deciding to keep this round. Maybe he's expecting the artillery to make it this way, or alternatively the SU. There you go. Finally, Tazhit's decided to reload. But oh my word, did you see how far that T-54 came round the corner before Tazhit fired? This is exactly what I was talking about in my before it was nerfed T-52 video the other day, and that is that the server basically pinged out whether you were spotting the enemy tanks so much slower back in the day. And this allowed light tanks to be able to come around the corner and to be able to come around the corner, or sometimes even skip the gaps on Himmelsdorf. But we don't have any time to talk about skipping the gaps on Himmelsdorf right now, and that's because an Su-122-54, a vehicle no longer in the game, it's pretty much just a glass cannon Soviet tank destroyer. Kind of imagine it to be like an Su-122, sorry, not an Su-122, the WZ-120 at Tier 8, that premium Chinese tank, but just moving it up to Tier 9, and that's pretty much what the vehicle is like. Okay, so TazHit has to be mindful of the enemy artillery right now. That M40-43E, however, back in the day, has a very low splash radius, and so even though the shell lands right there, that would be a certain kill these days. It doesn't quite manage to take out TazHit. He's got a dead commander, though. Is he going to use the medkit on the commander, or is he going to keep it? I really hope he uses the medkit, but I guess if he's proxy spotting in IS-3, he doesn't have to worry about too much. All right, now on 10 kills, TazHit comes around the corner. The IS-3 doesn't seem to be actually focused on him right now. Don't know what the IS-3 was doing. Maybe that was some serious tunnel vision, or maybe some kind of archaic bot program there. Nevertheless, the WT-100 does exceptionally well at punishing mistakes, and that IS-3 is taken out with half a magazine from the WT. Alright, so Su-122-54 on 157 hit points, the artillery breathing down TazHit's neck. He's now on 11 kills, and just look at that damage, 11,898. Just actually insane stuff right now. Okay, so TazHit decides finally to heal his commander, and the SU doesn't seem to want to make a play. So it looks like TazHit's going to take this opportunity to try and create some distance. And while the WT-100 definitely isn't the most sleek of tanks, with a Kamenet equipped and maybe working some bushes, TazHit might be able to apply some pressure. I'm just looking at the ping right now, and I'm realizing what kind of ping TazHit has. That's what happens when you live, obviously, really close to some of the Russian servers, right? Some of the ping dropping down to 10 milliseconds there at the time. I'm jelly of that, especially with quite a few people reactivating their accounts, I guess, and playing on the European server for this Christmas event, and also to pick up that T-52. The ping has been exceptionally bad for me. Alright, so TazHit now makes his way towards the cap circle, and with 2 minutes 30 seconds left on the game, TazHit will have enough time to be able to cap. Now he's going to go and work into these bushes. I guess he's going to set up an ambush for the SU. Now, can the WT elevate enough to be able to get the SU there? It looks like he's going to be able to hit the corner. Now, I just really worry about the artillery. If you were in artillery right now and you were thinking, where is somebody going to be in the cap circle? Yeah, possibly. So that would make me very nervous right now, and I would probably overthink the situation. Well, we're going to have to find out whether it's overthinking the situation or whether this is going to be a horrible heartbreak at the end of the game. Nevertheless, I feel... Oh, well, there you go. Su-122-54 piles around the corner, spots TazHit, but TazHit finishes him off, and the artillery misses the shell. And that splash radius, and the fact that this thing has got a big old hull, the tracks just absorbed the shot. Probably about 40 millimeters of spaced armor from the tracks there, absorbing a shell from the Tier 8 American self-propelled gun. And that's what I kind of preferred about artillery back in the day. They either hit you and did a huge amount of damage, or if they missed you because they can't aim and they're not predicting where you're going to be, you don't die. Oh, my word. I don't know. Looking at this game, I'm thinking there were definitely some things that I think I preferred about World of Tanks back then, but there were some things that I seriously didn't prefer about World of Tanks. Like this thing. Alright, so TazHit, 2 shells left. 55 seconds left on the game, and with a decent amount of view range, that M40-43, while it definitely had more view range back in the day, is still going to have his work cut out if he wants to try and find TazHit here. So the M40-43 looks like he was trying to aim a shell in, but TazHit doesn't get spotted and shuts down the enemy self-propelled gun, picking up his 13th kill. So TazHit unsurprisingly smashes an ace in one of the highest base experience games I've ever seen in a Tier 10 tank, 1,820. He gives his platoon mate a crucial contribution medal for securing 13 kills, one away from the Rezena Heroes medal, a pull for those 13, a Kolobanov's medal for standing alone against at least 5, in this case 6. And does he lose a load of credits? Well, no, actually, because I guess when you do 12,455 damage, you don't really have to worry about that kind of thing. So the 8.9 Waffentrager Alfie 100, in my opinion, the most overpowered tank of all time, along with vehicles like the Foch 155 in its pre-nerf state, the KV at tier 5, the unnerfed FV215B183, and also probably the unnerfed T57 Heavy. Yeah, Wargaming have a pretty poor track record with autoloaders and tank destroyers, right? And while some deepest, darkest, most evil side of the QuickyBaby kind of misses just seeing the raw firepower that a vehicle like this had, I know if Wargaming were introduced these onto the battlefield for an extended period of time, I would hate the tank now just as much, if not even more, that I did back in the day. So Taz here, spicy about sorry for uploading your replay 5 years ago. Felt like I had to get in my time machine and dust it off just to give everybody a reminder of how broken some vehicles were for a period. You played this game like a champ, you never gave up, and even with a vehicle as broken as this result was still, at least for me, really impressive. Anyway, ladies and gents, I hope you enjoyed this trip down memory lane. If you did, give this video a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And let me know in the comments what are the most overpowered tanks of all time in your opinion. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.